Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, the show that takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible.
Welcome to GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alyssa Joe, and I am a bit of a perfectionist. How many times have you heard that one? It's a common one for most people. You know, my personal favorite is the classic job interview question: what is your biggest weakness? Oh, yeah, that would have to be my perfectionism. Come on, we are all guilty of using that. But perfectionism can really hold us back. So it's funny how so many people jump to the time to say, oh, I am a perfectionist. Oh, that was just my perfectionism coming out. I did that way because I'm such a perfectionist. You know, we jump at saying that word. Oh, I'm a perfectionist. I make my biggest weakness is my perfectionism. We're all guilty of it. You know, our drive for perfection, it's so apparent. It's so strong and powerful that we never really take the time to question it. If you're a perfectionist, you don't question yourself that much. So what does it really say about us and our society that there is this stigma about perfection? That we see perfection as this great thing, as this goal. You know, we can see perfection as the emblem of success, the emblem of being successful. But the perfectionists usually don't feel successful. They don't feel happy or content. They feel like they are never enough. You don't feel like you're perfect. You know, when you're a perfectionist, you're always looking to be more productive, more attractive, achieve more things, be more famous, whatever the case may be. You want more, you want more, you want more. I want to be perfect, perfect, perfect in every aspect of my life. Perfectionism can be a cover-up for mental illness, and I don't think a lot of people see that, but it covers up what you're really dealing with a lot of the time, what's really going on in your life, the struggles that you have, the things that you're going through. You know, it covers up your reality. Because you're just so focused on being perfect on everything. You're not letting yourself think about anything else. You're not letting yourself feel some emotions. You're not letting yourself understand those things. You're just tunnel vision to perfection, and that's it. But it's not healthy. You know, it makes people push down what they're truly feeling and just hide what's truly going on. It's masking your feelings. And people are becoming more depressed. So that's why today I want to talk about perfectionism, overcoming perfectionism, to live a happier and brighter life. So I want to talk about exactly what is perfectionism, you know, the things about it. And then I want to talk about how we can overcome it, what we can do to really push past our perfectionism and just know that we are enough. And it's way easier said than done. People are masking their feelings. People are becoming more depressed. And the rates for young people in particular dealing with mental illness are going up and up. Suicide rates are going up and up because perfectionism is rising as society is changing. And a changed society reflects a changed sense of personal identities. The way people are interacting with each other and the world around them. The way people are interacting with themselves. It's because our society is changing. So now we're portraying this perfect life. We have to be perfect. People are getting obsessed with portraying that life, and especially young people, because of social media. Social media has turbocharged perfectionism. And I mean that. Turbocharged perfectionism in so many different aspects. You know, it's the obsession of looking a certain way on Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat or Twitter or whatever the case may be. You know, you're obsessed with creating the perfect Instagram feed, the perfect photo, the perfect caption, the perfect life. People are editing their bodies, their faces, by these apps that are out there because, you know, we feel like we need to get this many likes or have this many followers, and we can't do that unless we look a certain way, unless we portray our life in a certain perfect way. It's a visual culture. You know, the appearance of perfection is more important than reality. So people are focusing on becoming perfect or portraying this part, not even becoming just perfect, but making it seem like you're perfect, like you have everything together. And some people may have everything together and may be pretty damn close to perfect. But no one can be completely perfect. But we strive and we dedicate so much time into being perfect, to making it seem like we do have everything together, like we do know exactly what we're doing at 110% of the time in every aspect of our life. You know, it's the visual culture. We're wanting people to see that. Whether we're doing it on social media or we're doing it in real life. We're painting a picture for people to look at of this certain way because society makes us think that we have to be that way. But perfectionism isn't just about perfecting things, tasks, or striving for like complete excellence or success. Perfectionism is actually about perfecting the self, particularly the imperfect self. When you're a perfectionist, when you're striving for all these things, that means you're not happy with yourself. So when we're not happy with ourselves, we focus on never being enough. No matter how hard we try. And we will never be enough if we feel that way about ourselves. So, I have some examples of perfectionist thinking. So, my first one is black and white thinking, which means, you know, anything less than absolutely perfect, anything less than 110% is a failure. If I have to seek out help, ask for advice, then I'm weak. I'm a failure. Then there's catastrophic thinking, which, for example, if I make a mistake in front of friends or family or coworkers, I would never be able to survive that. I will never live that down. Or I physically, mentally, emotionally cannot handle when people are mad at me, upset with me, feel any other way than happy or positive towards me. I can't handle that. And then there's probability overestimation. So this means although I spend all my time working and working and working for all these things, you know, I'm studying, I'm preparing for my speech or my presentation or my test or whatever the case may be, I know I won't do well. But I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to keep putting in all this effort and trying over and over again. No, but it's fine. I won't do well anyways. And, or you could, another example would be like, people are going to think I'm lazy if I take a couple sick days, if I stay home because I'm tired. People are going to think that I'm not trying hard because I'm in bed today when I have a migraine. And then there's should statements. I should never make mistakes. I should never come across as a negative, anxious, depressed, nervous person. I should never be like that. Or I should always be on top of everything. I should always be able to predict problems and handle them. I should do this. I should do that. So those are some examples of perfectionist thinking. And, I think a lot of us do those more than we even realize. Maybe not in all aspects of our lives, but definitely certain parts. But perfectionism is taking over not just on social media, but in our everyday lives, within our head. It's a voice inside of our head that I am not enough. I should be doing this. Or no matter how hard I try, I'm probably going to fail anyways, but I'm going to keep trying. Or even if I do get a passing mark or I do get a good grade, it's still not enough. I'm not enough. You're fighting with yourself. You're fighting with your inner person, who you truly are. And so you're trying to perfect the imperfections. You're trying to change things. But if you don't love yourself, you can't love anything else either. You can't love somebody else if you don't love yourself. You can't completely fall in love with your career and your job and, your friends and your family and your life if you don't start within you. Nothing in your life is going to be perfect if you think that you're never enough. Because you're never going to have true happiness. You're never going to be fully content, fully satisfied. Perfectionism is apparent in a lot of people's lives in a lot of different aspects. And there's 3 forms of perfectionism. But I'm going to take a break. And when we get back, I'm going to talk to you about the 3 forms of perfectionism. We're going to get into some development and how to overcome it. So don't go anywhere.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Like I said before the break, I do have 3 forms of perfectionism for you. So the first one is self-orientated perfectionism. So this means that you lead people to be conscientious, to hold high standards for performance. And this can be associated with greater work productivity and career success. So, for example, I strive to be as perfect as I can be. It makes me uneasy to see any error in my work. I'm not happy with that. I must work to my full potential 100% of the time. I set extremely high standards for myself. I have to reach those levels. So that's self-orientated perfectionism. It's putting the pressure on yourself that you have to be 110% all the time. You have to always be productive. You have to always be striving for career success. You have to always be moving one step forward. High standards. You need to meet those high standards for yourself. And then another one is other-orientated perfectionism. So this means it involves holding others to a very high standard. And this can result in being very judgmental and critical to others' performances or appearances or just their personality. So this can actually lead to the person, delegating work to others in fear that they're actually going to screw it up themselves. And this leads to problem with working relationships and stuff. So you hold these high standards for other people and you become very judgmental. You can become very condescending. You're critical. You're picking apart every other thing that someone's doing. So for some examples, I can't be bothered with people who don't strive to better themselves. I can't hang around those people. Those aren't the people I want in my life, who aren't always being 110%. I cannot stand to see someone close to me make mistakes. Or if I ask somebody to do something, they better do it flawlessly. They better do it without any problems. So you're putting this high pressure on somebody else, but this all reflects towards your inner problems, to your inner imperfection. I'm going to put high standards on somebody else because I'm too scared to do it, because I'm too scared to do it imperfectly. Right? So then you put that pressure on somebody else. Oh, they better not screw it up. Or I can't stand it when other people make mistakes. And then there's socially prescribed perfectionism. So this means that it is driven by the sense of pressure to be absolutely perfect 110% in every single aspect of your life and every single thing that you do. So with socially prescribed perfectionism, it is literally the person's self-worth that's tied up with a sense of far-fetched, unrealistic, high standards that you hold to yourself. And so you might imagine, like, socially prescribed perfectionists experience a lot of anxiety over their performance. They have a lot of, they put a lot of pressure. They're feeling really anxious because they need to meet society's standards. So they're doing all of this not just to be perfect for themselves, but they're doing it to be perfect for society, to fit in, to be good enough for everybody else. This is very apparent in social media. Like I said before, you work so hard. A lot of people work so hard for their Instagram feed. They have to get the perfect picture, perfect this, perfect that. So it's socially acceptable to post even on Instagram. The thing with social media these days is that there's not a lot of authentic content anymore. It's all the same. Because people feel like if they are going to get likes and followers and things like that, they have to display the social image that everyone else is displaying, that social image of perfection. So socially prescribed perfectionism is basically when we go through every day as if we're standing in front of an audience, as if we're getting likes and comments and followers on every single thing we do, or we're standing in front of hundreds of people, harsh, critical audience. And that is so harsh on our health. We're constantly bringing ourselves down, and by trying to be on this level, right, on this high level, it's funny because we want to reach such high standards, but we're tearing ourselves down. We're breaking ourselves down into this pit that it's going to be so hard to dig out of. It makes us anxious. And honestly, therefore, our performances and the way that we're doing things, they tend to not be very good because we put so much pressure on things, And even if they are, it's still not good enough. It's not good enough for you. It's not good enough for society. It's not good enough for anything. So perfectionism can develop sometimes when earlier experiences teach us that support never materializes, even when we're upset or in need. So this is going to lead to a feeling that you're a burden, that you're not worthy of being taken care of, or you're not worthy of someone else helping you or teaching you. You must do everything by yourself. So no matter what's going on in your life, right? And so sometimes we go through early experiences, maybe it's childhood or young teens, or it could be any time really. But if you're experiencing things that, you don't get support, or you don't get a pat on the back, you don't have some unconditional support systems, then you can feel like you're a burden. Like everything that you're doing is not right. It's not proper. That it's never enough. So most perfectionists, they always work hard. They always have high standards. And they often look really great. Am I right? So what's so bad? Perfectionism isn't necessarily always striving for your best. It is the nagging feeling of never feeling like enough. And you can portray this life, this socially acceptable life on social media and through yourself. You can always be wearing your designer clothes, the top fashion trends, and have your hair perfect, and, you know, have career goals and career sets, and look like everything's put together. And maybe from some outside perspectives, people will think that, wow, that person has everything together. Wow, look at them. Like, that is crazy. Like, their whole life just seems so perfect. But it's not perfect because they have this nagging feeling inside of them that they're just never enough. And so basically, this all results, it comes down to fear. It all results in the fear of failure. You're scared of failing. You're scared of not being enough, so you're never making yourself enough. It's like self-sabotaging. You know, we're all looking to strive and to be happy and successful in life. But by striving to be 110% perfect all the time, we're just scared of failure. We're scared of messing up and not being able to move on, or to be, you know, humiliated by mistakes. We're simply just not enough by ourselves because we feel imperfect inside. So you're never going to feel 110% happy. And so those that present perfect, you know, we can see those people as a super person. But it's a paradox because they're working really hard not to be rejected or to fail, but their perfect appearance or performance, it's making them, you know, seem intimidating or annoying. And it's hard to relate to those people. It's hard, and it makes, you know, when you give off that vibe, that intimidating, annoying vibe, because you're always striving to be 110% perfect, you can't relate to anyone. And if the goal, which I think 90% of the time, the goal is to making connection and feeling apart, feeling like you belong to something, by turning it down a few notches, you can actually create the right approach in most cases. You know, by not being intimidated, by not putting up this facade, by this perfect life, or I'm this, I'm that. By not doing that, you're actually going to be making more connections because people aren't going to feel self-conscious around you. They're not going to feel intimidated. They're not going to feel scared. They're not going to be annoyed by you. A lot of people can't relate to perfection. You can't relate to perfection. You can't relate to something that, you know, can be very unattainable. Like, you know, a lot of people say, like, perfect doesn't exist. And I agree. I don't think perfect exists. I think that there's always room for growth in every single thing that we do. But that doesn't mean you're not enough. Doesn't mean you shouldn't celebrate your highs. Doesn't mean you shouldn't celebrate your successes and things that you do feel perfect at, because that's awesome. But if you're stuck in this mindset of perfectionism, you're stuck in this, I have to be perfect in everything, single thing that I do, you're not going to be making the right connections. You're not going to be striving in your life because you're not dealing with things that you internally need to. You're not ever going to be happy with yourself. So it is time for another break, but don't go anywhere, because when I get back, I am going to give you some tips on how to chip away at the mindset of perfectionism.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
We are back to GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. As promised before the break, I do have some tips and tricks for you can chip away at the mindset of perfectionism. So my first one is to realize that perfectionism backfires. You know, by going to your perfect dinner, dressed perfectly, with your hair all perfectly done, you end up sitting there self-conscious. What are people thinking? What do they think about what I'm wearing, about my new hair color? So you go to this perfect dinner in your perfect dress and you're all perfect. But you sit down and you're not present because you're in your head. Because you're thinking, oh my God, what is everybody else thinking right now? How is everybody else feeling right now? What are their judgments on me? So you're not having a perfect time. You're not enjoying yourself. So you need to realize that perfection, it backfires on you. And my next one is, when perfectionists feel lousy, they try to solve the problem or either avoid it altogether. So they look for information on how to solve the problem, usually by researching online or reading a book or even seeking out an expert opinion on something. You know, they try to figure out a full plan. Or, on the other side, they avoid it and they procrastinate on something that makes them feel incompetent or bored. You know, they avoid what makes them feel lousy. So, procrastination could be productive, though, when you're a perfectionist, right? You could be procrastinating, but almost not feel like you're procrastinating because maybe you're cleaning or making a list or checking your calendar or something else that you have to get done. Or you can just completely run away from everything. Lock yourself in your room and binge watch a Netflix series. But no matter what route you take, perfectionists always skip the part of feeling. Actually checking in to yourself. How are you actually feeling about a situation? How am I doing? How am I feeling? What is happening right now? So when you feel the urge to either problem solve or procrastinate, that's a cue in your mind to check in with yourself. What do I need right now? What is holding myself back? What are the emotions feel like in my body too? You know, am I tense? Are my shoulders up high? Is your back tight? Your neck sore maybe? Or you're getting really hot or really cold? Clenching your teeth? How are those feelings in your body? It goes throughout, it's not just internally. It is throughout your entire body. So realize these things. How are you feeling? Learn to recognize and sit with yourself. Sit with your emotions, especially your negative emotions, like shame or guilt or feeling stupid or inadequate for something. Those feelings are very uncomfortable, but it's key to developing the key things for overcoming perfectionism. Resilience and flexibility. You need resilience and flexibility to overcome perfectionism. You need to learn how to tolerate negative things and negative emotions. And that's the first step. So you can learn how to deal with failure. You can learn how to deal with setbacks and disappointments. So remember to check in. You know, when you're thinking problem solve or avoid. Think about you. How are you feeling? Why are you feeling that way? My next tip would be to give help a chance. You know, you have a nagging feeling that something is wrong and you may need to search out an expert to calm or to stress what you're feeling. But the perfectionist will want to perform at the highest level, at best completely, but they won't accept help to get there. You know, you must do it all on your own. Perfectionists will feel like they need help, but when they do get help, they often think that the expert actually doesn't know what they're doing or that they're wrong. Coaching is pointless. Or that they just simply know more than the expert. Oh, that was a waste of my time. Why did I search that person out? But if perfectionists are able to actually accept the help, truly, in all forms, no matter what it is, small to big, like work, personal life, emotional, whatever the case may be, if they're able to accept that and take that advice in, then perfectionists have, they have an advantage. Because they can take that drive and passion into, making everything perfect. And they can put that drive and passion into the advice that they got from somebody or the tips and tricks or, the words of wisdom, and they can go into overdrive. They can do superhuman mode, and they can take that advice and the effects from, the coaching and the therapy or whatever it may be, and apply it to their life very quickly and effectively. So learn where to put your energy. Learn how to focus your energy on the right things. So accept the help and then use your internal powers of drive and passion and focus to apply those to your life. My next one is to create excellence or pursue greatness for the sake of just creating excellence and pursuing greatness. For the sake of excellence. The sake of satisfaction. When you feel confident about something, like you're an expert or a master at it, then we tend to feel good about ourselves. And when we're able to use those things that we feel great about, that we feel an expert in or a master at, we contribute them to the world. We feel good about ourselves when we do it. It's a sense of achievement. But we need to do it for the sake of doing it and for the sake of feeling good, not because we want to prove ourselves, not because we want to put on a show or grab attention. So ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is it because it makes me feel happy, satisfied, proud? Or am I doing this to show off or in spite of others? Make sure that you're actually in line with your values. My next one is to prioritize. When you're a perfectionist, you're doing everything well, or you're at least trying to. And yes, I mean everything, which may make your resume look really good, but you ultimately burn yourself out. Your drive and your passion, it's amazing, but if you're putting that effort into the wrong places, you're going to burn yourself out. So you need to prioritize. So what is truly important to you? This is another thing. You got to check in with yourself. Think about you. What do you truly want? Pour your energy into the things that you love, the things that make you happy, the things that are actually going to truly benefit you in the end. You can try to also get a different perspective on things. Think about how would someone else approach the situation? Maybe someone close, like a family member or a friend. How would they handle this? How would they view the situation? Maybe there's other ways to look at the situation. Can you make a compromise? This is just going to be you setting more realistic standards by compromising, right? By looking at this and saying, okay, well, maybe that's a little far-fetched, but I could compromise with this and I could feel good about that. Check in. Set more realistic standards. Now, we need to change the perfectionist behaviors. Having a problem with perfectionism is a lot like having a phobia of making mistakes or being imperfect. You're terrified of making mistakes. You're terrified of, your fears. But when you have a phobia, what do you need to do? You need to face your fears. You need to face your phobia, maybe in a gradual but consistent manner. And that's the most effective way to overcome phobias. So this is called exposure. So you must gradually face your fears. Baby steps, right? For example, you can leave a visible area in your house a little bit messy. Maybe, you always have to have everything spotless clean. Maybe just let yourself slide a little bit. Or tell other people when you're confused, lost, or tired, or any feelings that you consider a weakness. Actually speak up about it. Seek help. Accept the help. Talk at a meeting or something without rehearsing. Without your perfectionist habits. We need to implement the thought that imperfection is normal. It is a part of our everyday life for absolutely everybody. It is normal. Having high standards for things can be very healthy. It can help you build a life that you truly want. High standards for self-performance shows you want things out of your life and that you're going to work your butt off to get there. That's amazing. But if you're holding yourself to unrealistic high standards, then that's a completely different story. Or if you're feeling like the world is demanding from you to be perfect, society is making you think that you have to have a certain look or think a certain way. Like you have to have the perfect Instagram feed with the most likes and the most followers. Or look a certain way to gain those likes. You portray yourself as something that you're not because you feel the demand from society. You feel the demand from your inner self, and that you absolutely have to live that way. But you don't. You need to be internally happy. You need to stop and think about yourself and how you're feeling. Think about what's actually best for you. Prioritize those things. And be aligned with your values. Imperfection is apparent in everybody, and it's normal. Perfectionism is something that a lot of people struggle with because we all want to live a happy, healthy, successful life. But we need to learn how to manage those feelings and how to manage our perfectionism and overcome that and put that drive and that passion into better things in our lives, into places that are going to actually make us grow, because failing makes you grow. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. So get uncomfortable. Start growing. Let yourself fail, and it's okay to, because you are enough. And you need to feel like you're enough. You need to know that you're enough. So that's all the information I have for you today about perfectionism. I hope this, opened your eyes a little bit to society and the way that you're feeling and checking into yourself a little bit more. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of GSMC Life and Happiness Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Alyssa Joe. I had such a great time, talking about these things and learning about self-improvement and self-growth to live a better, happier life. So please hit the subscribe button, like and follow us on social media, and leave a 5-star review. Till next time, thank you.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find the show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitchers, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows. From the GSMC Podcast Network, from sex and relationships to health and wellness, life and happiness, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Life and Happiness Podcast.